What's going on, Sens fans? Welcome back to actually something new. Jordan and I from the New Era Sens podcast are going to be doing a mock draft today.
Hmm.
So we haven't really done anything like this, especially live. So this is going to be really fun to do. We've got quite a quite a list going. We're going to go 1 to 15, and kind of base it off of who we think is going to be drafted high, and as well as is a team going to be drafting by position? Are they going to be best player available and whatnot? So kind of taking all that into account. So first off, how you doing, Jordan?
Doing good. It's nice and toasty down where I'm living, so trying to cool down. But I'm excited to do this mock draft, especially just for the non-playoff teams. Like a little bit of everything here, and this draft's so wide open that you really can't go wrong with any of the picks.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people like my list. Now that I'm looking at it, is close to Craig Button's, and that's like simply because there's so many options, and anybody could go anywhere. And looking at what a team needs is kind of a big way to look at it in this draft. And so, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about my list, and hope you're feeling good about yours as well.
Yeah, like nothing too hot of a take. Like a few guys higher and lower than the consensus, but like all just personal preference and definitely team needs always factor in. As much as team say is the best player available, they go for positional stuff all the time too.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's get right into it. We'll start at 15. I think the New York Rangers are going to select Cole Sillinger. I think he is getting better with his skating, but is a little bit behind still. But his shot is just fantastic, and you'll hear that about a couple guys ahead of him in this draft. But this is somebody that the New York Rangers need, and I think it's a good fit. With Kako kind of struggling a little bit in his first couple seasons on the wing. Obviously, Lafreniere is going to be a huge impact on that team. But even after a rookie season like this, you want to add more depth there. And you could argue that they need more depth down the middle, but I don't know.
Yep. No, I can definitely see that. Like, Sillinger's definitely a guy I was thinking of, but yeah, I went with Atu Ratu, probably the biggest wild card in the draft for me, just because going into, pretty much into this year, he was almost consensus top 5 pick, like maybe number 1, and then his stock just plummeted over the year, and it's mostly because like his play didn't really take that next step that a lot of people thought it would. But to me, he's still easily a top half of the draft, like top 20 pick, and I think the Rangers would take him just because, like you mentioned, the center depth issue. Zibanejad's getting older, like. Well, I forget how old he is, and his contract's up, and I think after next year, so they need to just really figure out the center position. And like Ratu's not going to be a star center, but he's probably going to be a second line, worst case third line, defensively sound, kind of jack of all trades type guy. And he was a consensus top 5 pick before, so maybe the high upside is still there, and it was just a bad year for the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with our picks, I have Cole Sillinger. You have Atu Rati. Good picks. Rangers are getting something good out of that.
Yep, I would not be mad with either player.
No, and I think they're both players that you can see up and down the list, and I'm sure we will see it here in this mock draft. But yeah, it's just, again, this draft is so wide open. You can't really be wrong. So moving on to 14 with the Dallas Stars, I have Carson Lambos. He is going to be a fantastic defenseman in this league, and I really think that his skating is going to be something that this league, and especially because he's been playing on such a different ice surface than the NHL's, it'll be crazy to watch what he can do on NHL rinks, and because his skating is just that good. And he is a two-way defenseman. He's not necessarily offensive or defensive, but he's very good in both ends. His slap shot, his one-timer, just fantastic. And yeah, he's just overall a very good defenseman, and I think Dallas could use this. John Klingberg is kind of taking a step back. Heiskanen, obviously, that's his decor. But yeah, I could see this being a pick for Dallas.
Yeah, for sure. And like I know his stock kind of fell, like because beginning of the year he was also kind of like a top 10 potential guy, and people kind of soured on him, but still very good defenseman, and especially with like Alexiak's likely leaving in the offseason. I don't know if they keep him around. Like this guy could be a really good replacement in 2 to 3 years if he reaches potential. Like I don't know if the offense is there to be like a top pairing guy, but like a number 4 defenseman on a good team, like kind of play maybe second power play, like probably top penalty kill. Like, very good defenseman, skates really well, plays physical. Like, I'd be happy with that pick there. So I went with Fedor Svechkov, the Russian, and he is just kind of all around, plays all forward positions. Very safe player, like the two-way. And I like the lowest, I don't want to say lower ceiling, but the safer picks in the middle of the round, guys that will play. And this guy just seems like he's a second-line player. Not going to be any worse, not going to be any better. Just plays physical, very defensive responsible, and I don't know if he's going to be a center at the NHL level. Sorry. But he will be like maybe a third line center, but like a top six winger, like two-way type of player.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at Dallas, they need a little bit of everything. Obviously, they went from the Cup final to not making the playoffs, which nobody's really been talking about. What's going to happen in Dallas? What's next year going to look like? And there's a lot of things that they could do this offseason, so it'll be interesting, and that would be a pretty sound pick as well.
Yeah, they're an older team, and they need to start to recoup the prospect cover.
Yeah. So moving on to 13 with the Philadelphia Flyers, I have Atu Ratti, and I think everything you said, like he's going to be able to come into the NHL, and he was a top 5 pick, and it almost seemed like everybody was already marking him down as one, just like we all are Bedard, and like it's just crazy that he can fall down so much. And I think his skating is a big part of that. He's not a very good skater at all. And I think that like it's weird because he's so good defensively and he's so good at playmaking. He's not a great shooter, but I don't know. There's just something missing from his game, and I think it's his skating. But I do think that there's the potential to be a fantastic NHL player there, and Philadelphia could definitely use a guy like him.
Yeah, like Philly's a weird team where they just routinely go up and down playoffs to contender to being kind of a bag of poo. But he's just, like I said, like the offense is still there somewhere deep down. I don't think it's just gone. So, like, yeah, really good pick still. And I went with Lucius, which may seem low to some people, and I know some people have him like potentially as a top 5 pick. But for me, like, there was the injury that really held him back this year, but he just tore up over a goal per game, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the best, if not the best, shots in the entire draft class. And Philly just kind of needs that. Like, I know they need defensive help now, but in a few years they may not need that help. So I went with just who I thought was the best player on my board at the time. And Lucius, not the best skater, and I don't know if he's going to be a center at the NHL level. But with that shot, like, worst case, he's on your second power play unit, just in Ovechkin's office, just sniping goals. And goals are an important thing in the NHL. So kind of does everything, and he is an underrated playmaker too. So I think he's just, at this point, the best player, and Philly needs some youth in that lineup. They're an older team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say him and Cole Sillinger is kind of who I had fighting for 15. A lot of the same skill set, and I can't even argue with you. Like, there's just that much parity in this draft.
Yeah, like any guy from like 8 to like 18, you can make a case for, and you can't really be mad about.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to 12, I have Calgary taking Fabian Lysell, and I will say I'll be a little bit surprised if he does fall this far, just because I could see him go 8. I could see him go 4. I could see him go 18th.
Yeah.
This is just one of those players that, and I did a good write-up on him on the New Era Hockey Network website, and he just has so much to his game. He's a fantastic skater, arguably the best skater in this draft class, I think. And his hands, his defense skills, they're all fantastic. And you're almost looking at poor man's Patrick Kane here. And I think the potential is definitely there to become, I mean, like, look at Nikita Kucherov. He was a nobody when he was drafted, and look at him now. It can happen with anybody. And I think if anybody has the skill set to do it, it is Fabian Lysell.
Yeah, for sure. I think he has the high ceiling, by outside of, like, personally Volstead, the goalie. Like, he's who I think is the best in the class, but goalies are weird. But yeah, Lysell just, like, you look at all the drafts everywhere. Like, some people have him as high as 1 or 2. Some drafts have him like in the mid-20s. Like, this guy's just all over the place. But I think teams are probably more higher on on him than they are low. And like everything you said, he's just so dynamic, pretty good defensively too. Like doesn't really get talked enough about that, but I really like Lysell. But yeah, so I went with what number are we on? Oh, I'm messed up. I went with, are we on 12 or 13? I already
12.
Forgot. 12. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I went with Edvinsson to Calgary.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. I messed up my numbers on my board. Who did I have listed here?
This was your 13.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I have Edvinsson going here. Yeah, and for me, he's just all over the place, really. And like probably the biggest boomer bust guy in this entire draft.
Yep.
Like I think if he hits, like I wouldn't be surprised if he's the best player in this draft. But there's his decision making at times leaves a lot to be desired. And for a big guy, he's not the most physical, defensively responsible player, but he is young and he can easily work on that stuff. But like I said, like the offense is definitely there. He skates very well, and he does have a good offensive instincts once he's in the offensive zone to find the open lanes, make the plays, find nice shots to get through. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't really pan out, like, and just stays in Sweden.
Yep.
So like very interesting player. And like I think he's another one of these guys that's kind of ranked like as high as like top 5 in the mid teens. So
yep.
I like the guy. Not as hot as much as some, obviously, but very, very fun player to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So going on to 11 is the Chicago Blackhawks. I have them taking Zachary Leroux of the Moncton Wildcats, and I think that he is almost something that fits really well in Chicago. When you look at a guy like him, you think of Tom Wilson, Nazem Kadri, and for us Sens fans, Ridley Gregg is a very similar prospect, but I think it's a really scary prospect because it also could be a Logan Brown, and I don't know about him. It's going to be a boomer bust kind of pick, and I think that's kind of what Calgary is in for right now. Yeah. Obviously, he has some great physicality to his game. His great hands are something that really stands out in his game as well. But his discipline issues is something that a lot of people are going to look at and maybe shy away from. He had a couple of suspensions this year, I do believe. So, yeah, that might not be something that people want, especially this high in a draft.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, discipline, especially this high up, like, later in the round, like when Ottawa took Greg, like those things are definitely flags to look out for, like discipline. Like you want the guys to play on the edge, but you also want to be smart about it. And yeah, Leroux is a lot like that. So like I love the guy. I have him rated lower though, just because I don't know how well that's going to translate. Like you don't want a guy again suspended taking dumb penalties all the time. So for me, I went with Matthew Coronado, just because it makes sense. He plays for the Chicago Steel too, and he's undersized, so well, not too undersized. I think 5'10's on the slight slower side, but he kind of just does everything very well. Underrated defensively, and he is very good on the half wall, making plays, finding those inseams into the net front area, into the home plate area. He just kind of does everything pretty good offensively. That I think the size is not going to be an issue for him. Very good vision for the guy. The big question mark that I've had was the competition because that team is just stacked in the USHL. Yeah, so absolutely. I don't know how much of that was him just kind of picking on like not as good opponents or him just being as good as he is. So like definitely some question marks, but I really like the guy and wouldn't be surprised if he goes higher.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those players that not many people are talking about and could definitely go higher up in the draft or could fall out of the top 15. There's just so many options in this draft. It's crazy. So moving on to number 10, this is our first pick that we agree on. And I think we're both hoping for this one. Mason McDavid going to Ottawa at number 10 would be a very Ottawa Senators pick. And like he does it all. And his skating isn't out of this world fantastic. It's not terrible by any means. And his shot is good. Just everything about him, it screams Ottawa at this pick. A lot of, I hate to say it, but Mark Stone similarities, including the hair.
Oh yeah. But yeah, no, McTavish, like, I think everyone can agree he's just the most Ottawa-centered player in this draft. Like, high character guy, which we know Dorian likes, local, dad played pro hockey, big kid, plays physical, plays with that edge. And like, other than that, like, that's just the Ottawa stuff that would make sense. Which he has one of the better shots in the class, and really worked on his playmaking over in Europe this year when the OHL was shut down. So I think he added that to his game, which is awesome to see. But yeah, the skating is probably the biggest issue with him, which you never really want to see for a potential top 10 pick. But that was Mark Stone's issue too. And Ottawa really worked on that and made him one of the best players in the league.
Yep.
So I think everything about this kid is just makes, like, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes top 5. Like, he really had his stock bump up after the U18s, which I did not like to see because I liked him wanting to go 10, or at least to where Ottawa drafted. But no, like, everything about this kid is, and the high compete level, like when Shane Wright got hurt at the U18s, like, McTavish, I believe, was named the captain of the team too. So he has those leadership qualities.
Yeah, and just like you said, everything screams Ottawa. And I really hope if he's on the board that Pierre Dorion does not miss this. Again, I trust Dorion to make the right pick. He's shown us that he knows way better than us with Kachuk,
all the time,
with Sanderson, with Pinto, even with Greg now. Like, it's just that fast. So yeah, just as a Sens fan doing this, I really hope that it's McTavish that falls. And I might have been a little biased on him, maybe ranking him a little low so we get him.
For sure.
But realistically, it's possible. It could be a great fit. Could be, but like you said, could go top 5. So
easy.
Moving on to 9, I have Kent Johnson. Kent Johnson is going to be a fantastic center in this league. He's one tier below the guys ahead of him. And I think, like, his two-way game is going to bring him really far in this league. He's going to be like a Pajot type player. Obviously in New York, in that system, we're seeing him as a 1C, a 2C, a 3C. We traded him knowing exactly how he was, and he was a high-end 3C or a low-end 2C for us. And I really think that that's what Kent Johnson's going to be. He is very, very creative and can definitely have the assets that he needs to succeed in this league.
Yeah, no, I have Kent going a bit higher because I really like the player. The big question mark with me is he has probably the best hands in the entire draft class. Like, it makes it look so easy. But at the times he tries to do too much by himself, and the player pace and decision making, I don't know how that's going to translate to the higher level. But I think at worst you're getting like a third line center, like you said. And at best, like, you're getting a guy who could, similar to Edvinsson to me, could be the best player in the class.
Yeah, and like, we see him in the NCAA going for the Michigan or the lacrosse or whatever you want to call it. And like, going between the legs all the time. He's just so creative, and he's so fun to watch. So I would be very happy to see him go to a team like Vancouver, because Vancouver almost needs that in their lineup. They have Pettersson, who is fantastic offensively, and like, they do have the talent there. They just kind of all play a system. They need something fresh a little bit. And so I think it would make a good pick.
No, I like the pick a lot. And I have going 9, Fabien Lysell, who, like we said earlier, he could be going anywhere in this draft, but I wouldn't be surprised, like we said, number 1 to number 20, who knows at this point. But a line of like Lysell on a line with like Höglander and Pettersson, that just seems so fun. And Lysell, like, just does everything. Probably the best skater, or at least one of the best skaters in this draft class. Great defensively, like, good playmaker, attacks the middle, plays with a lot of pace. Like, he just has such a motor on him that he's never, like, you're never going to look at him and say he's not trying or he's not giving it 110%. So this kid, he's just so fun to watch. And sorry. Yeah, so I think just going to Vancouver, like, they kind of need a bit of everything, but they just need to surround the talent they have with the best players they can get. And I think Lysell at this spot would just be such a good fit with all the young Swedes in Vancouver right now. Yeah,
absolutely. Vancouver's building up a really good young core, and I love it. Like, I've never hated Vancouver. I've never loved them. But yeah, like, it'll be really cool to see all these young guys coming up.
They're a fun team.
They are. So at number 8, I actually have Luke Hughes going to the LA Kings. And I think this is a really fitting pick because obviously Doughty is on the downhill. Unless you ask the NHL players. I don't understand how he got what was it, top 4 voting or whatever he got.
Oh, God.
But yeah, LA, they're really missing some depth in that blue line, especially since they traded out. Like they lost Martinez, Muzzin, Doughty on the downhill. So I think Luke Hughes is a really good pick because he can bring so much offense from that blue line that they're missing. And he is a defensive liability at times. He's definitely gotten better this season for sure. And I don't know. I just look at Luke Hughes and I think that it'd be a perfect fit. I would think it would be a perfect fit on a team with one of his brothers as well.
For sure.
But we'll definitely see how that turns out.
Yeah, and I think LA debatably depends on who has the best prospect system in the league, but their defensive prospects leave a bit to be desired right now. Like up front, they're stacked. But I'm going to add to that because I have them taking Dylan Guenther, who is like a offensive-minded winger that does have a lot of good instincts. And but after watching the U18s, the reason he's lower on the list for me is I found he didn't play with the best pace and kind of got exploited by the higher competition.
Yep.
So, but hell of a shot, underratedly good defensively, does try his best. I don't want to say try his best. That sounds patronizing, but he's always competing. And like I love the way the guy plays, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him go higher or lower depending on who you ask. But no, I think just with Kaliev on one, Kaliev's a right shot, I believe. But having them on like either separate power play units or on the same one with two deadly shots in like 3-4 years down the line, like that'd just be deadly to watch.
Yeah, I'm much higher on Guenther than that. Obviously, you're right. The U18s, he was kind of disappointing, but I'll get into that in a few minutes
for sure.
But yeah, it definitely would be a fantastic fit on LA. But yeah, moving on to 7, I have Simon Edvinsson. And I think that he has the potential to be one of the most dynamic players, Erik Karlsson level. He just has such good vision. He has just such good IQ. He knows what he's doing all the time. He needs to work on his skating a lot. I don't think that skating level that he's at now could really compete in the NHL. But his offensive abilities is just mind-blowing. And at 6'5", you can't really fault him for his skating. It's really tough to knock a guy for something that you're 6 inches taller than the rest of the league. Like it's crazy. And I just think his offensive abilities would bring a huge impact to San Jose. It might not be a great fit because of what they have on defense, but they're all getting old. They all have big contracts. I just think San Jose would make a good fit for Erik Karlsson.
Basically. And I basically did the exact same thing as you, but I went with Brandt Clarke, the right shot.
Yeah.
And I think it also a bit of just like, I think it could be a good story type pick because Brandt Clarke grew up idolizing Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
And I think this is the range he's going to go in anyway. And you said San Jose, their decor is getting really old. They have a lot of money locked up into Vlasic, Burns, and Karlsson. But eventually they'll find a way to get rid of one of them eventually. And I think Clarke, really choppy skater, which I didn't, and going into this year, I didn't really realize. He's like not a bad skater, but it just looks a little weird. But offensively, he could be like up there with Edvinsson, just for the best offensive defenseman. And everyone loves the right shot guy. So I think it's just a good fit and to learn under Erik Karlsson, who could be the best offensive defenseman in the last 20 years.
Yep.
I think it'd just be a really good fit for San Jose and would make it a really good story.
Yeah, either one of those guys land in San Jose, they're happy as can be. Obviously, you're not going to learn the bad parts about Erik Karlsson's defensive game by training with him, but you're going to learn all of the incredible skills that Erik Karlsson had. And the mentorship there with either Luke Hughes or Simon Edvinsson or Brandt Clarke, either or is going to be fantastic. And you couldn't be happier, I don't think. And even Brent Burns, obviously, he played some time as a winger, but just the offense is there, and you got your mentors. Oh,
for sure. I think either guy would be a perfect fit and best guys to look up to.
Yeah. So in Detroit, we have another agreement. We both have Jesper Wallstedt going to the Red Wings. And I think that we both really see that the Red Wings need that. And obviously Wallstedt is going to be a franchise goaltender. He looks absolutely dominant in everything that he plays. And I think he could come to the NHL as soon as next year, maybe the year after, but it's not going to be long until he's playing. And for those of you who talk about don't draft a goalie in the first round, look at the playoffs right now. There's 4 teams left. All of the teams, their goalie was drafted in the first round. It's not just the same as a 7th round guy. It could be, but it's not. So similar to Askarov and Knight, I think people are scared to take the goalie that high because what if? But just like you said before we started this, and I'm sure you will go on to say, I think he has the highest potential in the draft. Closest to the Hall of Fame, I think it will be Wallstedt.
Yeah, I think he's. It sounds weird to say about a goalie because there's always the goalie's voodoo, which I am a believer in that aspect. But Wallstedt, by all counts, and watching the guy play, I have a number 1 on my personal board. I just don't think he's going to go to that top. I'm just looking at the other teams ahead of him. Buffalo has Lakonen, Seattle, nothing, I guess. Anaheim's got Gibson still there. Jersey's got Blackwood, and Columbus has got 3 really good goalies right now. Yeah. Detroit's the first team. They don't have any goalie prospects, and Bernier and Grice are both old on the older side, and Bernier I believe is going to be gone this year. So I just think if you can get a franchise goalie, and like you said, the 4 teams left, they're all first round picks. 2 of them, Fleury was first overall, and I believe Price was 5th, I want to say. So 2 of them were top 5 guys.
And Varlamov was 26th, and Vasilevsky, I don't remember what Vasilevsky was.
He was 18 or 19.
Something about that.
But yeah, so I just think he's the best player in the draft. And I know there's probably some Red Wing fans that are no, we want the best non-goalie available. But if you can get a franchise goalie, look at Vasilevsky's doing down in Tampa. There's no doubt he's the best goalie in the league for the last 2-3 years or so. Yep. And he's just, anytime they make a mistake, he's there to cover them. It's not just a really good team. It's a really good team with the best goalie.
Well, and look at Montreal. They have, I don't think Wallstedt will be a Carey Price, but any goalie that is at that caliber can do what Carey Price is doing. And not to make it sound easier, discredit him or anything, but you can always have Vasilevsky do a run like Carey Price, or Gibson can come in the playoffs and have a run like Carey Price, and there doesn't have to be an all-star team in front of him.
Yeah.
Look at Montreal; they're up 2-1 in the semifinals. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, Price is a huge reason, if not the biggest reason, why that's they're up in the series. So I think Wallstedt's just the obvious pick for Detroit. And then if they don't take him, I think San Jose takes him. They also don't have any goalie prospects. But I love Wallstedt, and I think he is the best player in this draft. But I don't think he's going to go high because goalies are weird.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to Columbus at 5, I have them taking William Eklund. William Eklund is going to be a very good player in the NHL, and I think just such a two-way player. And I think looking at him, he's going to be not necessarily a better version, but very quickly become what Connor Brown was this year. And I think that's kind of what I'd expect out of him. And just his skating, his shooting, his vision, it was all fantastic and on display in the SHL. So he had a fantastic year, and I don't know. I think Columbus could use a guy like him. Yeah,
Columbus, looks like they're entering some form of rebuild. They got 3 picks this year. Jones is probably leaving before next year. So I think getting Eklund would be huge for them. Don't know if he's going to be center or wing, but having the guy like that play with someone like Laine would be really fun, because I assume Laine is going to stick there, hopefully. But I have them taking Kent Johnson, just because I think I think it's the same thing with Edvinsson, could be the best player in this draft if everything goes right for him and he translates his natural skill to the NHL.
Yep.
Watching him play with the puck and just kind of almost toy with defenders and break their ankles, could be the most fun player to watch in the entire draft. So, and the only issue I have with him is that play at pace. There's sometimes where he tries to go 1-on-3 and get some stuff himself, I'm in trouble. I'm stuck in the corner now.
Yeah.
And the decision making and the pace, he seems to get caught out a bit, but really good defensively. And watching him just the puck's on a string with him, and it's like watching a video game. And I think having a guy like that set up Patrick Laine for the next 5-10 years would be magic to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And like people forget Patrick Laine has like one of the best shots in the league.
Oh, for sure.
People are like, yeah, he had a bad year, I guess, because he played for Tortorella
On the fourth line.
Yeah, his shot is fantastic. And if you can get anybody to feed him pucks and give him a good amount of time to shoot the pucks, he's 100% going to be your guy. So
yeah, and like Columbus, I don't even know what their center depth is anymore. Like it's like Alex Texier and Domi.
Overrated.
Yeah, it's like Domi, who somehow has like most penalty minutes in the league, and Texier solid, but then like no one else I can think of unless I'm forgetting someone. Like they need center help, and I think Johnson at this spot's the best center they can get.
Yeah. So moving on to 4 with the New Jersey Devils, we have, it looks like our picks swapped with the LA Kings. So I have Brant Clark and you have Luke Hughes. So this is pretty much going to sound exactly like our LA conversation. 2 offensive guys, something that New Jersey could use. They got PK Subban for that, but we all know how that turned out. And New Jersey is just missing a few pieces. And I think a lot of it is because their stars are not taking that step forward yet. Like Jack Hughes had a pretty underwhelming first year, and he started off his second year fantastic. And I'm sure he's going to go on to be a great center in the NHL.
Oh, for sure.
And same with Nico Hischier, but they're just not there yet, and they should be.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like he's probably not going to be a point per game guy, but just a great two-way guy that could potentially win Selkies in the next few years. And Hughes is going to be amazing. Like I have no doubt once Jersey gets better, he gets better. And I haven't taken Luke Hughes because we all heard that quote where Jack's like, I want my brother if he's available.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure. And Luke is good enough to be in this spot. Like I don't think it's a reach at all. Like personally, I think he probably should go a bit lower. But I just think Jersey, they need help on the blue line as well. Like Subban's getting older. Butcher, I don't even know what he is anymore. I think he's been scratched a lot. So getting like Jack Hughes' brother, it'd be a good story. We know Jack wants it, and they want to probably appease their potential superstar center.
Yep.
And he's a damn good. He's basically Quinn Hughes light. Like not as good or offensively, probably a bit better defensively.
Yep.
And not as dynamic as a skater, but still a very good player.
Yeah, I'd love to see him go to New Jersey. Not very often you see brothers playing together.
No.
And especially for a long time. Like, other than the Sedins, there hasn't been many teams in the last 25 years that have had 2 brothers that play together for a long time.
More than a year, yeah.
Yeah, like sometimes you'll see some Stalls crossover, and you used to see the Sutters crossover and whatnot, but just seeing them all like play their career together, it's always fun to watch. So yeah, definitely rooting for that. But yeah, moving on to number 3, I have Dylan Guenther going to Anaheim because I don't know, with Jamie Drysdale, and I think that they have what they want based on what's available. Jamie Drysdale would be the best defenseman in this, or offensive defenseman available in this draft right now. And they got him. There's not much that they would want to add. Like, you always want the best player available, but you don't want the same player in 2 drafts in a row. So I think taking Guenther is a huge win for them. They get one of the better shots in this draft. And just like you said earlier, he's just perfect for almost any team to put on the power play or to match up with somebody. And having Zegras feed him pucks all the time, that would be absolutely monstrous.
No, that'd be really fun to watch. And like I said, my issue with Guenther was the pace, but on the power play, you don't really care about pace. Like 5v4 advantage, you can just put pucks in that hopefully at will with Guenther, Drysdale, and Zegras just toying with the PK. But I have Anaheim taking Eklund, who I love this guy's game, and he did amazing in the SHL this year. He was on a team with Holtz, and he outperformed Alexander Holtz at the start of the year. I know he slowed down a bit towards the end, which is bound to be expected from a guy who's really young, like a teenager. Yeah. But the fact that he's outperforming Eklund or Holtz go like 7 or 8 last year, and he outperformed him, and on the same team. And he just kind of does everything so well. I don't know if he's going to be a center at this level, but Anaheim just needs all the help they can get out front. Like, they are abysmal offensively.
Yeah.
They got Gibson in net. They got a really good decor that's going to have Drysdale join, like, probably be a full-time guy next year.
Yep.
But they can't score goals. And Eklund, very good defensively. Probably could be one of the better two-way guys in this entire draft. And, like, he's one of the safer picks, but he does have a higher offensive ceiling. So I think having him playing on the wing with Zegras would be really fun, because Eklund plays with that pace and Zegras has that creativity to make a lot of stuff happen in the offensive zone.
Yeah, and like looking at talent like Trevor Zegras, it's going to be so fun to watch Anaheim, especially if they get somebody who can play with Zegras. Obviously, they have a good amount of young guys like Sam Steele, Troy Terry, and just
Comtois
a good group of guys. Yeah, Maxime Comtois, and yeah. But none of them are going to be at the elite level, and I think both of these guys that we talked about could definitely hit that, especially playing alongside Zegras, and maybe even for a little bit playing with a guy like Getzlaf who knows what he's doing in the middle. So
yeah, and I think Getzlaf would be a perfect mentor to Eklund, especially if he sticks at center. Yeah,
and we see the connection that Getzlaf and Zegras have, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So moving on to number 2, looks like we're in agreement for the rest of this list.
Yeah, I think we're at the same top 2.
Matty Beniers, gonna go to Seattle, and a good start. I think a perfect position for Beniers is a really good second line center. But he almost has all of the skill set ready to be an NHL center. And he might not be the number one guy you want putting out every night, but if he has to be and you have another good number 2 behind him, great. He can definitely get the job done offensively and defensively. Like, you can trust him with almost anything.
Yeah, and I think Matty Beniers is easily the safest player in this entire draft too. Yep. Like, this guy's going to be an NHL player, extremely likely at least a second line center that is just good on both ends of the ice, never quits, goes in the corners, wins faceoffs. Like, I don't think he does anything elite, but he does everything extremely well.
Yep.
Like, I love the way this guy plays. That. Oh, for sure.
But yeah, like, everybody knows Matthew Beniers is probably going to go number 2 to Seattle. It makes so much sense. You get a number 1 center, at least, like, based on who's available, he's going to be one of your better centers right out of the hop. And I don't know what his plans are for next year. I don't know much about what plans are for next year for this draft. I don't know if many have said it.
I think Power said he's going back.
Yeah, and I mean, that's expected. You don't even know what's going to happen next year in terms of the league. But yeah, Beniers would just be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And then moving on to number 1, Owen Power, the 6'5". Everybody's calling him Victor Hedman. The biggest reason I have him going number 1 is because Buffalo doesn't have a scouting team, and Craig Butt
That's why I do.
Number 1. Like,
same reason.
Yeah, he probably deserves it, but just simply based off of a mock draft, why do I have him going to Buffalo at 1? Is because they do not have a scouting system, and he is what people say is number 1. So, yeah, like, 100% he deserves it. He is 6'5", has pretty good skating for being 6'5", and can control any game in the blink of an eye. But I don't know, some of his defense isn't quite there, and some of his offense isn't quite there either. It's just all almost there. Similar to Matthew Beniers, it's not all perfect, but it's all really close to getting there.
Yeah, I like how you compared him to Beniers, because I think Power is probably the second safest player in this entire draft. I have him a bit lower because I don't think he is the next Hedman, as some people were saying. He big, very good skater, does have good offensive instincts. Defensively, he's not great, but I think he hopefully will get better as he gets older. But I don't have him going first on my personal rankings. I have him like in the middle of the top 10, like around 5-6. But it's the exact same reason you said. Like, Buffalo doesn't have a scouting system. They have like 2 guys scouting. And especially after last year when they took Quinn over Rossi and Perfetti, I feel like Adams just want to appease the fans and do what most people think is consensus.
Yeah.
So I don't think Power is the best player in this draft. He's a very good player, and I think at worst you're getting a good second pairing defenseman that plays like second unit power play, second unit PK, and every team would want to have. but I don't think he's like the bona fide top tier pick. I just think Adams is going to play it safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly it. Play it safe. And like looking at Owen Power, he 100% has the potential to be this number one pick. And if he can figure out his defensiveness and get him working well in the NHL with his size, that'll be the biggest thing, because him and Dahlin have every opportunity to be one of the best pairings we've ever seen. Like 2 first overall defensemen, you don't see that very often.
No, I actually don't. I can't think of a time that's ever happened. It'd be really fun. And if Buffalo, the only thing also Buffalo, I hope they don't rush the kid. Like he needs, like I know he's committed to Michigan next year, but I hope they just don't throw him to the Wolves, because Buffalo, especially with Eichel, Reinhart, and Ristolainen's whatever, but those guys going, they're going to probably be in the basement for the next few years again. So I just hope they don't just throw Power to the Wolves, because I want to see this guy reach his potential. And if he does become a top pairing defenseman that becomes like a Hedman light, that'd be amazing to see. Yeah,
definitely. And it's weird because every team, like Ottawa, we were the laughing stock of the league, and understandable. Like it sucks because we were Ottawa fans, but it's understandable. If it was Minnesota that was in our position, we'd all be laughing at them. But nobody wants to see Buffalo lose anymore. Like it's been way
just
too
sad
long now. So I really hope that Owen Power wins 4 Norris trophies, because he turns out to be just like Hedman. That would be awesome to watch, but you never know with Buffalo. Some people look good, then they get to Buffalo and Taylor Hall. Hello.
Yep. Then even guys like Middlestat and Ristolainen are both top 10 picks, and they don't look too great right now.
Yeah, exactly. So before we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you a quick question. If Jake Sanderson was in this draft, where's he going?
Like if I was mocking it, or on my personal list?
If you were on your personal list, where would you have him ranked?
I was looking at my list right now. I'd have him in that tier. Like my top 3 I have as my personal top 3s: Wallstedt, Liesel, Eklund.
Yep.
Then like Beniers and Clark are my next 2. I'd have him right in with like Beniers, Clark, so probably like 4 to 6, 4 to 7.
Yeah, fair enough. That's just something I've been I can't remember who I was talking to about it on last season or last off season's podcast, but we asked that and it wasn't answered.
Like I think he's definitely in the conversation. Like if Sanderson was in this class, I think he could easily have the potential to go first.
Oh yeah, definitely. Could at least be challenging for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everybody for coming to watch. This has been a lot of fun, and we're going to be doing a lot more stuff like this from a Sens perspective and the other teams as well. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow the Twitter account, and you'll be catching more of this content. So thanks for coming to watch.
Thanks guys. See ya.